I think we should expect more of Diddy's employees. This is the fifth assistant who's testifying, the most recent witness up until the time that he was arrested, Jonathan Perez. And I expect the prosecution to actually wrap up their case in chief next week.
Hey, baby, we had a great time. Stay in the light. It's all good. Get your rest. You are the crack pipe.
The Diddy Files. Inside America's most shocking celebrity trial. Live coverage! Are you ready to go deeper into this new series of events? Let's for episode 9, The Vegas Revelation, Las Vegas. The city where what happens there supposedly stays there. But what if I told you that what happened in Vegas during one weekend in January 2024 would become crucial evidence in one of the biggest celebrity trials in American history? Welcome back to the Diddy Files. What you're about to hear in this episode will show you that the alleged crimes we've been discussing might not be isolated to just one person, because Jane's testimony about her Vegas trip has revealed something that should terrify anyone who cares about justice. The possibility that these freak-offs aren't unique to Diddy, but part of a broader culture in the entertainment industry. Picture this. It's January 2024. Jane and Diddy are on a break from their relationship. Jane gets an invitation that many people would kill for. A trip to Las Vegas to celebrate a very famous rapper's girlfriend's birthday. Not just any rapper, mind you. According to Jane's testimony, this is someone she described as an icon in the music industry and a very successful rapper who is close to Diddy. Now, I want you to imagine being in Jane's position. You're dealing with the trauma of an abusive relationship. You're trying to figure out your life. And then you get invited to what seems like a glamorous celebrity party in Vegas. It probably felt like an escape, didn't it? A chance to be around successful, powerful people who might treat you better than the man you'd been with. But what Jane found in Vegas wasn't an escape. According to her testimony, it was more of the same. Here's what Jane says happened. She arrived in Vegas for what was supposed to be a birthday celebration. But at some point during the trip, she encountered Antoine, the same male escort who had been involved in the hotel nights with her and Diddy. And what she witnessed next should make you question everything you think you know about celebrity culture. According to Jane's testimony, Antoine had sex with another woman while 7 or 8 people watched. 7 or 8 people. Just sitting there, watching. Like it was entertainment. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't a private, intimate encounter between consenting adults. This was a performance. A show. Something that was organized for the viewing pleasure of others. But it gets worse. According to Jane's testimony, after engaging in what she described as flirty banter with the unnamed rapper, she was instructed to flash her breasts to the room. Let that sink in. A woman who had already been traumatized by alleged sexual abuse was being told to expose herself for the entertainment of a room full of people. And this wasn't happening in some seedy underground club. This was happening at a celebrity birthday party in Las Vegas, surrounded by successful, wealthy, powerful people. Now, here's where this story becomes even more significant for the trial. Jane testified that during this Vegas trip, the rapper and his partner asked her for a recommendation for a male escort. And who did she recommend? Cabrale, the same entertainer who had been involved in her hotel nights with Diddy. Do you see what's happening here? This isn't just about one person's alleged crimes. This is about a network, a system, a culture where these kinds of encounters are normalized, where male escorts are passed around like business cards, where women are treated as entertainment for powerful men. And here's the most chilling part of this story. Jane testified that the unnamed rapper and Diddy were close friends. Which means that what happened in Vegas wasn't some isolated incident. It was part of a pattern, a culture, a way of life among certain circles in the entertainment industry. Think about the implications of that. If this behavior is happening at multiple celebrities' events, with multiple powerful people involved, then we're not just talking about one bad actor. We're talking about a systemic problem that could involve dozens, maybe hundreds of people in positions of power. But here's where Jane's agency becomes a crucial part of this story. Unlike the alleged forced encounters with Diddy, Jane chose to go to Vegas. She chose to engage in flirty banter with the rapper. She chose to recommend Cabrale as an escort. And this is exactly what Diddy's defense team is trying to use against her. They're arguing that if Jane could make choices in Vegas, then maybe she was making choices during her encounters with Diddy too. Maybe, they're suggesting, she wasn't being forced. Maybe she was a willing participant. But here's what I want you to consider. Can someone who has been systematically abused and controlled really make free choices? When you've been conditioned to believe that your value comes from pleasing powerful men, when you've been isolated from support systems, when you've been made to feel like you have no other options, are your choices really free? This is the complex psychology of abuse that the jury in this case has to grapple with. It's not as simple as she chose to do it or she was forced. The reality of abusive relationships is much more complicated than that. And there's another layer to this story that makes it even more disturbing. Diddy's reaction when he found out about the Vegas trip. According to Jane's testimony, he didn't find out about it until months later, when he read messages about the trip on her phone during the violent altercation we discussed in earlier episodes. Jane testified that Diddy lashed out at her when he discovered what had happened in Vegas. But think about what he was angry about. Was he angry that she had been mistreated? Was he angry that she had been put in a compromising position? No. According to the testimony, he was angry that she had gone to another man's freak off. He was angry that she had participated in someone else's system instead of his. That reaction tells us everything we need to know about how Diddy allegedly viewed Jane. Not as a partner, not as a human being with her own agency and choices, but as property, as something that belonged to him and his system. And that brings us back to the bigger picture of what this trial is really about. It's not just about individual acts of alleged abuse. It's about a culture that treats women as commodities. It's about a system where powerful men feel entitled to control and exploit others. It's about an industry where this behavior is so normalized that it happens at birthday parties in Las Vegas. The unnamed rapper in this story, the icon in the music industry, hasn't been charged with any crimes. He hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing, but his presence in this story raises uncomfortable questions about how widespread this culture really is. How many other celebrities have hosted similar events? How many other powerful people have participated in or witnessed this kind of behavior? How many other women have been put in positions like Jane found herself in that weekend in Vegas? As this trial continues, as more testimony comes out, we're starting to see that the allegations against Diddy might be part of a much larger story about power and abuse in the entertainment industry. The Vegas revelation isn't just about one weekend or one party. It's about a culture that has allowed this behavior to flourish for years, maybe decades. In our next episode, we're going to explore one of the most bizarre and disturbing pieces of evidence in this entire case. Ecstasy pills shaped like former President Barack Obama's face. And what this evidence reveals about the intersection of power, drugs, and celebrity culture will shock you. Because if there's one thing this trial is teaching us, it's that the corruption of power can take forms that are more twisted and disturbing than most of us ever imagined. And the evidence that's coming out in this courtroom is painting a picture of a world where nothing, not even the image of a former president, is sacred. Are you ready to see just how deep this rabbit hole goes? Because what you're about to hear next will show you that the alleged crimes in this case aren't just about sex and violence. They're about the complete corruption of everything we're supposed to hold dear in American culture. Episode 10, Pills, Power, and Presidents. What does it mean when someone takes the image of a former president of the United States and turns it into a drug used to control and coerce others? What does it say about our society when the face of Barack Obama, a man who represented hope and change for millions of Americans, becomes a tool for alleged sexual crimes? Welcome back to the Diddy Files. What you're about to hear in this episode will show you just how far the alleged corruption in this case extends. Because the testimony about Obama-faced ecstasy pills isn't just a bizarre detail. It's a symbol of how power can corrupt everything it touches, even the most sacred symbols of American democracy. Let me paint you a picture based on the testimony of David James, Diddy's former assistant. According to James, Diddy typically carried between 25 and 30 undisclosed pill bottles. 25 to 30. That's not someone who occasionally uses drugs. That's someone who has turned drug use into a systematic operation. But here's where this story becomes truly disturbing. When prosecutor Christine Slavic asked James to describe the ecstasy that he saw Diddy taking, James testified that there were various pills, but one type stood out. One type that should make every American's blood run cold. There was one that was in the shape of a former president's face, James testified. And when asked which former president, his answer was chilling. President Obama. Now, I want you to think about what this means. Barack Obama, the first black president in American history. A man who inspired millions of people around the world. A symbol of progress, of hope, of the possibility that America could be better than its past. And according to testimony, his image was being used to manufacture illegal drugs. But this isn't just about disrespect to a former president. This is about the psychology of power and control. Think about what it means to take the image of the most powerful person in the world and literally consume it. To turn a symbol of authority and leadership into something you can swallow, something you can control, something you can use to control others. And that's exactly what prosecutors allege these drugs were used for. Control. According to multiple witnesses, drugs weren't just recreational in Diddy's world. They were tools. Tools to make people more compliant. Tools to break down resistance. Tools to make victims do things they wouldn't normally do. Jane testified that Diddy would offer her ecstasy before engaging in what she described as role play. Think about that sequence. First the drugs to lower inhibitions and resistance, then the psychological manipulation of role-playing, then the alleged forced sexual encounters. It's a system, a process, a methodology for breaking down someone's will and turning them into what prosecutors describe as a victim of sex trafficking. But the Obama-faced pills represent something even more sinister. They represent the complete corruption of American symbols and values. Here's a man who allegedly built his empire on the American dream. A poor kid from Harlem who became a billionaire through music and business. And according to the allegations, he used that success, that platform, that symbol of American achievement, to prey on others. And he did it while literally consuming the image of the president who represented hope and change for so many Americans. The symbolism is almost too perfect, isn't it? The corruption of the American dream, literally shaped like the face of the man who promised to restore it. Now, I want you to consider the broader implications of this testimony. We're not just talking about one person's drug use. We're talking about a culture where illegal substances are so normalized that they're manufactured in the shapes of political figures. We're talking about a world where the line between power and corruption has been completely erased. And this connects to everything else we've learned in this trial. The systematic nature of the alleged crimes. The use of celebrity names as code words. The network of powerful people who allegedly enabled this behavior. The complete disregard for the humanity of victims. But here's what I find most disturbing about the Obama-faced ecstasy pills. They represent the weaponization of hope itself. Barack Obama's presidency meant something to people. It meant that change was possible. It meant that America could be better. It meant that someone who looked like many of the alleged victims in this case could rise to the highest office in the land. And according to testimony, that symbol of hope was being turned into a tool of oppression. Think about what this says about the mindset of someone who would use these drugs. It's not enough to have power. It's not enough to have wealth. It's not enough to control others. You also have to corrupt the very symbols that give other people hope. It's a level of psychological manipulation that goes beyond just the physical acts described in this trial. It's about breaking people down, not just physically, but spiritually. Not just individually, but culturally. And this brings us back to the central question of this entire trial. What happens when power is allowed to operate without accountability? What happens when wealth becomes a shield against consequences? What happens when celebrity culture protects predators instead of victims? The Obama-faced ecstasy pills are a symbol of all of that. They represent what happens when power becomes so corrupted that nothing is sacred anymore. Not the presidency, not hope, not change, not the very symbols that are supposed to unite us as Americans. As we move toward the conclusion of this trial, as the prosecution nears the end of their case, I want you to remember these pills. Not just as evidence of drug use, but as a symbol of how far the alleged corruption in this case extends. Because this trial isn't just about one man's alleged crimes. It's about a culture that allowed those crimes to happen. It's about a system that protected the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. It's about what happens when we worship wealth and fame instead of character and integrity. In our next episode, we're going to explore the witnesses who saw alleged abuse happen and did nothing to stop it. We're going to talk about the celebrities who were present when violence occurred, who had the power to speak out, who could have made a difference, but chose silence instead. Because if the Obama-faced ecstasy pills represent the corruption of hope, then the silence of witnesses represents the corruption of courage. And understanding both is crucial to understanding how alleged crimes like these can continue for years without consequences. Are you ready to confront the uncomfortable truth about celebrity complicity? Because what you're about to hear next will challenge everything you believe about the responsibility that comes with fame and power.